Hey, welcome back to the channel. All right, it's time for the monthly update of July 2023 to the overall tier list. It's wild for me that this is actually our 33rd edition. For those of you who are like, hey, dude, I already saw you do the top 10 in each class. As you know, that's something we do semi-annually with my Discord server. And then the personal rankings, that's just me, okay? My experience, my thoughts. This is a little bit different. Of course, it's all going to still go through me and I think about it and I ultimately end up making the final decision. But as you can see there on the right-hand side, we've got the whole MCoC Illuminati. If you're unfamiliar with my channel, this is a group of incredibly smart players. A lot of them have become friends of mine who have channels that I watch so I can get better at this game. And every single one has input on this tier list because this game is just way too big and complex. Let's increase our knowledge, let's increase the amount of people we have in getting input in and get that in here to you. And we've been doing this, we've been finding this over the course of 33 months. Another reason it's gonna look a little different is after we do that exercise, right? We did this in December of 2022. We reformatted the list. It forced me to think some things through. You ultimately understood what I was trying to say. Took that to them and like, hey, this is what I really believe. And that causes a lot of conversation. So you're gonna see a lot of updates. I'm going to try to move through this as quickly as possible. This is a good time for me to say, I will put a time set so you can jump directly to the rankings, but I really think you should stick around so you can hear a little bit about the format and then also the legend. There's always questions on here that make it clear that people either didn't listen to that, or they didn't understand that part, okay? And then if you could do me a massive favor, and it would be a favor for you too, because you would get better at this game, go and pick at least one of those Illuminati. This spreadsheet is linked in the description. You can go just click right on their channel right there, Mr. Tom Jarvis. There's a link, take you to it, you hit subscribe, you get better at this game. Another thing is all of these champions also have links, right, to the playlist on my channel. Many times this will take you to videos I made. However, as with Gambit, it's going to be videos also by the MCoC Illuminati and sometimes creators that aren't in that group who I really respect. They did a phenomenal job. You often see a lot of videos from Simula in there. That's a great example of that, all right? And then we've got the legend. We'll go through it very quickly. The star means the ranking is dependent on their awakened ability. Without it, they would not get that ranking. The little cheers champagne flutes there, ranking dependent on synergy. So it's the synergy there. That's all relative. We have to think that through, like how good is the synergy partner, that sort of thing, but that's where that's from. The rocket, the big boost from higher max Civ. These are the ones that you really want to put in. Think of Omega Red is always the key example for that. Crazy high skill required, you'll see that. Very recoil friendly is the little skull there. Again, you'll see that on the list. The microphone, we're going to talk about them in this video. There was a lot of them to talk about, so I want to continue to move through. The little heart envelope there is a champion who's buffed either directly or by a newer champion. I do consider a champion like Mantis to get that, as well as a champion like Hulkbuster, okay? So there's a large variety of champions like that. I will not put that on for Baron Zemo. That's a rebounds, not a buff. There's a little video game monster that's primarily on the champion. I think there might be another one or two, and that's Go Ask Suida. I don't fully understand what it is he's doing, but it's phenomenal, it's amazing, and it's worth checking out. Those are supposed to be like little mountains. If you look at them very, very closely for a long time, they'll turn into mountains, and that's where Everest content would increase that champion's rating or rankings, or maybe that's why they're even as high as they are. The heart is that they're broken in enough places. I'll kind of talk about that quickly when we get to Doom. And then the dice means it's like my prediction. It's a little early, so make sure you take this with a grain of salt. We actually have a demotion this month. And I think that you'll see why we've got that diced emoji. I know I feel a lot better about it. We then have the floppy disk, which thanks to Joey, a follow on Twitter, funny meme or joke he put out there the other day, I gave me the idea for this, is there are some champions, and again, going back to looking at you, Gambit, who with the right relic actually do get significantly better, right? We like relics, we can talk about relics another time, but Gambit is a champion where if you have the right one, he gets significantly better. And then I do always want to point out that Battlegrounds now has its own separate tier list. So some of your like really good defenders like Korg aren't really going to be on here, and that's because this is intended more or less to be offensive use and just general rank ups. If you're interested in Battlegrounds tier list, I've been doing that monthly too, also with the input of the MCoC Illuminati. BMcG's got an overall tier list. I enjoy watching that. DLL typically does his essential war attackers, war's on hiatus, but I'm sure he'll continue to do that. And then I've pointed out the rest of the MCoC Illuminati. These are channels I genuinely watch to get better at this game, to be entertained. These are voices you hear on my calls, on my streams, and the VBC tournaments, things like that. So, all right. Hey, sorry for the aside. If you could do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, and consider sharing this with someone, it would actually help me and this channel out a lot, and I greatly appreciate it. That was a lot of intro. We got a lot to cover. I'd like to get to it. Let's go. Okay, we're gonna start off with Mystic. The first tier is the tier above all. These are just the best, okay? Just the best. Doom is the only one that has that broken heart, and what I want to say is, like, he's just so often broken, right? You've heard me give the difference between broken and overpowered. That's what that that emoji means. It's like, they're just often, I imagine quest designers have trouble with it, maybe even defenders, or when the champion designers are creating new champions, they sometimes maybe have to consider this champion way more than they otherwise would want to. It's not a scientific thing, but I think you get the main idea. The only champion in the Mystic class here is coming in the super premium. The most common question we get as YouTubers is, should I rank up this champion? And the way we came up with that criteria there is in super premium. If we can just give an immediate yes, then that's good. That means you get in super premium. If we're super excited, like, heck yeah, top shelf, premium, yeah, but let's check why, right? Okay, so that's what that's all about. Kindred's really good. I've actually pulled up his abilities here. I like to listen to DLL's ability spotlight with context. He also often does like a watch party on the early edition ones on the MCoC channel. And I learn a lot about that. And I feel like I often get a sense of what was a champion intended to be. And Kindred is clearly intended to be a defender, right? Which is good. A lot of those who enjoy battlegrounds, we want those defenders. A lot of people who enjoy war, you want those defenders. If you're just purely into questing, you're probably not too excited about him. But he also sounds incredibly sustainable. You are going to want him awakened, best I can tell. Even that root passive, especially if we're doing this for defense, but the once per fight at 5% health, getting that root passive does seem to be kind of part of what he does, particularly as a defender. And then I think as an attacker, something that's really interesting that he's bringing, very unique to the Mystic class, is he's immune to poison, incinerate, heal block, infuriate, and intimidate effects, right? So I think he's one, if you pull him, he's probably going to be good enough offensively where you're happy you ranked him. He's someone you're going to use, but primarily it's going to be for defensive use. And if you just happen to really enjoy playing him, then you've got a very worthwhile attacker. And that's something I usually say earlier in the video, which had so much to do, is champions, even in the premium, the answer, if you want to rank them up, is yeah, go for it. It's a fun game. Enjoy it. Have fun. Even the fourth tier on this list are very, very good champions. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to Mutant as we kind of continue on here. The first one we're gonna get to is Domino. This is actually a promotion. We had her in Super Premium, but we're seeing her use, and the current Gladiator Circuit meta is enhancing her, right? Because it's putting on that bleed. But the fact of the matter is there is now the Mr. Sinister Relic, which gives that bleed, which then increases the attack power of her SP2 if she's had a single bleed by some like outrageous number. Now, if you watch enough of the VBC, you know, though, how often she's not critting, not helping out, but she's still solid, and she's still primarily a defender for that. Also, we've got her with the synergy tag, so if you team her up with Masakre and Red Hulk, you've got the options of doing that heavy incinerate playstyle. She's very, very good. She is obviously available as a 7-star. I do have a separate video for the best 7 stars to take to rank 2, because I do think that's different than a tier list. But we did put her back up in the top shelf. I think she makes sense there. I feel good about her there. Moving on to another new champion that we didn't cover. She came out in June, but we were doing the top 10s, is Dani Moonstar. Dani's a tough one for me because I genuinely really wanted to like her. You saw me even go for Paragons. I got very lucky, so that was nice. But I'm motivated to like her. You know, an indigenous champion that's meaningful to me. It's something I personally wanted. Now, from the game standpoint, though, in the tier list, she is very powerful. Especially if you get her with that relic. You're going to want the Gambit relic. 5 stars probably good. Ideally, you want the 6. And for those of you who are like, relics, you just go down to the bottom of the page. I have a separate page there for relics. You'll see that there. We also have one for synergies. Dani seems very powerful. Like, the capabilities are high. There's powerful miss mechanic, and which is powerful. There is the slow, which is powerful. She has passives, which is very helpful against the skill class. She has the ability to do very large damage off the SP2. I feel like at least some thought was given to how to fight Fury. So I really like her, but it feels like it just wasn't finished. It just didn't get the extra polish. It's not totally refined. There's a few like almost flaws in her kit. One, that she's a miss champion, right? But one of her main targets, it feels like a lot of work was put in how to counter Nick Fury, turn off his second life, but he counters miss. So there's just I think an inherent tension in her kit with what I think she was designed to do. Also, like her SP2 applies the neural arrows, but they don't apply till the end, which means even you could potentially kill Nick Fury too fast because the neural arrows don't get a chance to apply and then be turned into the passives. I do feel like these are things that could get cleaned up at her rebalancing if they choose to do it. My fear is that she was designed to be a good Nick Fury counter and do a lot of damage, and that the statistics will show that she's being used to defeat Nick Fury's, and she's also doing a lot of damage. And so getting into that detailed on the how and is the success rate and is the quickness of defeating Nick Fury truly what was intended, or is that not the goal at all? And so I'm not predicting a buff. You know, I often predict, I predicted the buff for Mantis. I said I didn't think Gallon was going to be nerfed. With Dani, I don't know. I truly don't have a feeling. I think it's going to come down to how refined did they want her to be, or do they feel like her current brute force nature right now is good enough? Moving on to Gambit, he is very powerful, and I will eventually get a Gambit video out because it's one of my first rank 2 7 stars. Part of that was him being awakened though, and also it was before I fully understood the Gambit relic. Like this is a playlist where if you have questions about Gambit, I mean, I recommend you go to all of them. But you definitely want to check this one out, especially once I get out my video, because I'm going to show you what he looks like with the 5-star relic. There's a Bitter Steel video in there as well too, and he's got the 6. It is significantly more impressive for 2 reasons. That relic makes a massive difference. And while I think Gambit is worthy of ranking with the 5-star relic, you really want the 6, and I will show you that in my video. I will show you the fails and non-crits. Also, Bitter's a significantly better player than me. He's even been able to pull off the heavy into special tactic that I'm still struggling with. So if you like Gambit, and he can do a lot. There's some resistances, there's a concussion, which I've used and I really like. Maybe if I get the 6-star, he could move up. I don't see him moving to the top shelf, but I could see in theory him moving up in that super premium. That's a competitive spot though. Look at that. We've got Havoc, Sunspot, Strife, White Magneto, and a powerful champion like Dani Moonstar. She's not refined, but she's powerful. So keep in mind, Super Premium is not a bad rank. These are great champions who in certain scenarios will seem like the best in the game. And that's about where I would put Gambit right now. He's also a phenomenal horseman. Now, moving on to Wolverine. Wolverine X. This is recent for me. TJ, Tom Jarvis, has been actually trying to get Wolverine X promoted for a very long time. And I've always felt like he was more of a defender, but then I started using him offensively, and he has a unique playstyle. But if you're someone who makes mistakes often, or just a little bit, I guess depends on how you think about it, he's really great for that. One, because he can get this massive attack increase. He's also often going to heal that back. He has some really nice powers against, I think it's evade and miss, and then his bleed damage is significant. Plus he's got a great heal, and I don't think his ranking is necessitated, or the relic does not need to be there to get this ranking, but he does increase in value with the Wolverine relic. Currently, it's Munosh, I think, who has some of the best videos on Wolverine X. I probably will get one out myself, but it is a little farther down the line. And Tom Jarvis is, like I said, been talking about Wolverine X for quite a while. I could actually, in theory, see him moving up and probably get an adjustment in the Battlegrounds tier list, but this is not that. Moving on to the science class, we're in the top shelf, which is like the absolutely yes. And I'm going to talk about Titania first here. I really was tempted to put her all the way in tier above all. She continues to improve. When she came into the game, we talked about how going unstoppable, going unblockable, and going indestructible passively was really a big deal. And we found like there's going to be more and more uses. What also happened is we realized how much damage she can actually put out. I think her coming as a 7-star helped with a lot of us see that. There were players, I think like Karate Mike and Bitter Steel, who are showing us as a 6-star what she can do. You can do significant damage off of the SP2, or you can go for those big highlights that I love, going off of the SP3. She's also phenomenal for some of the toughest defenders in the game, which are often Mystics. Absorbing Man, her husband, she just destroys him. She is great. She's phenomenal. Like I said, I think in the right hands, she really could be tier above all. Cassie Lang, I know I've been telling you for a while, I pulled her early and I was like, she was an immediate rank 4 for me. At the time, I couldn't tell that she was whiffing. I thought there was something very strange with her animations. They are rebalancing her. I do feel like this is more of a rebalance because I think it's more clear this is what was intended with her tankiness. But if you spec into Inequity, you will still achieve that same level of tankiness. She's phenomenal. She's great. I do think she has a little bit of a high skill cap when the defender or the node can slow her down or ruin your tempo or mess with your tempo, but she still is a phenomenal champion. Them being promoted, they were in this tier, but they both moved up significantly, meant that champions like Mr. Fantastic, Spider-Man, Mr. Negative all did move down a little bit, but they're still at the top of that tier. Moving down, Spider-Ham, this is a full tier promotion. He probably should have always been here. I know Dot, if Dot's watching, is like, yeah, I've been telling you. We've seen Spider-Ham look so good in Battlegrounds, a very difficult defender, but also handling some of, kind of like what I just said about Titania, handling some of these incredibly difficult Mystic defenders. I was very early on Spider-Ham. If you go to that playlist, we're going back like 2 years. I think I'm in 4 Loki at the time in BG1, which means we're going way back. He's a killer. And I remember that's what I titled it. And what I love about him is the simplicity in playing him and the flow. You just play him and the good things happen. He's got a taunt. And if you're like me, where you're prone to making a mistake here and there, or you don't know all the evades from specials, he has 2 evade mechanics that you can utilize to help you out with that. He also even has a bit of a degen resistance, I think it is, which makes him, I think, have even more lasting power in the game, because degen feels like one that Kabam just throws on to a defender or a node or things like that. It's not saturated, it just can be more added on. He really is phenomenal, probably deserved this promotion a very long time ago. He's not just a power sting champion, and I think unfortunately I allowed myself to start thinking of him that way, and it just wasn't accurate. And then moving all the way down is Silk. Silk's great. I'm filming this on Sunday evening. I actually wish I was grinding for her on Monday. She feels like, and I think it's BMcG that said this, and he has pulled her as the 7-star. Make sure you check out his videos on her. In fact, I'm going to update that playlist. I can see that they're not in there, and I'll get that updated so you can check those out. He's doing significant damage. It is a 7-star, but it's a rank 1. It is awakened, but again, it's a rank 1. I'm seeing great things out of my alliance mates with their 6 stars. I really do want her. And she is unique in the science class, which is really hard to do when you think about all the variety that is there for science. The other thing that I absolutely love about her is she seems designed to defeat the ridiculousness that is Rintra, right? With her slow, I believe, is on her specials and the ability to reverse the power, the heal and things like that. She's very good. It looks like she may have a bit of a higher skill cap. I don't think she's going to get that crazy high skill emoji though. I think if you can play aggressively, play her well, you're going to get phenomenal results. She doesn't seem to be much of a defender, but that's okay. I think she's good. I could definitely see her moving up this list, probably eventually getting above Immortal Abomination and Captain America. That's what I think. And then that is it for all of the changes in the science class. Let's move on to tech. Moving on to tech, we have promotions within the top shelf tier. And I have to say, there's another champion similar to Titania, where Future Ant-Man actually almost went to the tier above all. I've taken mine recently to rank 5. It's a video that I will be getting out relatively soon. There's a part about his kit that's still kind of, it's not fully coming to me naturally, and I'm struggling to fully get it down, but I'm still producing great results. Again, this is another playlist that needs to be updated, and I'll get the link in this channel. BMcG has produced some phenomenal Future Ant-Man videos. He was very early on him, saw how powerful he'd be. His power control is very unique. It's reminiscent of Punisher 29, but they are different champions. Future Ant-Man's signature ability is great too, and you can get him at that high sig. I really would not be surprised in the next month or two, you see us add on the high sig and the awakened ability, and he gets put into the tier above all because his damage is really good too, and that's something that I did not account for very well at all. Shuri, you know how much I love Shuri. I've put out 2 videos now, and the second one I think I've fully proclaimed, like, I believe she is a top 5 tech champion. In the first video, I was still just astounded at all of the things she could do. And what's amazing about her is I believe almost all of those fights were Battlegrounds fights, which are good because they're difficult. And you can take that into questing and things like that. But what's pretty amazing about it is that she was quick enough to win Battleground fights, and she's still actually a ramp-up champion. When big Everest content comes, and it's got to eventually come, right? I have a feeling she's going to be very, very good for it. And if she's not, it won't change her ranking because that's how good she is for Battleground, War, and your general questing. She's great. Moving on to Mysterio, as I put out the video recently saying, I wish I had taken Mysterio to rank 2 instead of Lady Deathstrike. Now, it's interesting because of the way they are currently rated. As you can see, Mysterio is higher up. He does have the passive heal block, and that ranking, though, is including him with the Penny Parker synergy. It does make a big difference in using him in just general questing and things like that, or if you could bring it to War. In Battlegrounds, I still think of him primarily as a defender, but his offensive use is very, very good. And like I talked about in that video, I think Neutralize and things like that are making what his kit already was actually improve or grow in value to an account, which is why I like him better for an account right now than I like Lady Deathstrike. And the last, quickly, I will say about Hulkbuster is I have seen Nagase's video and none of it surprised me. There's a reason why Hulkbuster has been in this tier for a very, very long time and will not be going anywhere. He has fantastic, fantastic damage. There are some parts about his kit and why I think these other champions are probably better for an account, but he's in that tier and he can be phenomenal for you if you get him. I happen to have mine at a very high sig. I absolutely love playing him, especially with that Hulkbuster relic. And moving on to Super Premium, we have another one of our new champions in Lady Deathstrike. I pulled the 7-star and I took her to rank 2, and I did it for dual use purposes in Battlegrounds. And I was very aware of it, and there was a Battleground meta coming up, and she is very good for it. She has a very easily applicable heal block. She has those resistances to bleed and poison. I can't tell currently if it's the fact that she's not awakened or if she just isn't able to get into her damage fast enough regardless. I'm not seeing a ton of stuff out of the 6-star that wows me. Now, there's a video in there from Bitter Steel, and it is impressive, but it's not wowing me to the point where I'm like, okay, cool. This is better than Guardian. This is better than Ultron. Here's where I would want to use her over Warlock. There might be 1 or 2 instances like that, but then I feel like those other champions have significantly more places where I would rather have them. To me, she suffers a little bit from what some champions have where they're a little too tailored to defeating a certain class. And I get that, and that might be the theme they were going with, in which case that's great. And keep in mind, I'm the one saying Super Premium is very, very worthy of ranking. I ranked mine up to rank 2 without her even being awakened. I could see her getting moved to the top shelf, but I want to wait on that, especially with it being a newer champion. I'd rather be wrong on this side of it and then promote a champion than have them too high and have to lower them or demote them like we're going to have to do when we get to Cosmic. So I want to quickly mention that Viv Vision is being rebalanced, appears to be a buff. I know smart Viv Vision players who like what they heard, but I don't think we have a lot of specifics yet, but I did at least want to point that out. We're going to move on to the skilled champions. The first one I want to talk about is Kate Bishop. I literally just made my Kate Bishop video that I've been collecting footage for a couple months now. She's amazing. If this was my own personal list, she'd be number 1. Now, it's not my own personal list, right? It goes through my filter. It's got my name on it. But I've told you, I have to also listen to the Illuminati. They're very smart. They have experience and knowledge sets that I do not. And this is where we've ultimately come up with. I will say this, is I think all of them would agree that Kingpin, Nick Fury, Valkyrie, and Kate Bishop are the top 4. And it's really just who do you want, how do you want, how are you enjoying playing the game that would determine who is your quote unquote best. Shang-Chi, I do think is a slight tier below, but not enough to put into the top shelf. Some of you are like, well, then why don't you create another tier? Because I really want people to understand that champions, even in the premium tier here, are worthy of ranking, especially if you learn how to use them. The super premium are definitely worth ranking. And I know how it is. When you see a tier list and someone's in the 5th or 6th tier, it's like your brain just automatically tells you they're trash. That's not the case in this game. It is too big, too complex. Too many of the champions are good and worthy of ranking. I've also recently done the video on Falcon, right? That's who we're next going to talk about in the top shelf. He's great and honestly very surprising. There's not a lot to do in his play style. It is still boring in that sense, but winning is very not boring, and he wins a lot. I've put out the 2 videos on him. If something new or unique or exciting happens, I'll put out more. But right now, there's a lot of that there. You see a 7-star rank 2 Falcon with a Black Widow relic doing massive, massive damage. It's very cool, and it's not just evade matchups. Mantis feels like she got the buff she needed. She is going to get higher highs or more eye-popping numbers more often than a lot of these other champions that are rated above her. She doesn't have the utility as much as most of them. Personally, I'd rather take the one that's like an 8 out of 10 in damage with like the 8 out of 10 in utility than a champion like Mantis, who I do think is a 10 out of 10 and maybe like a 6 out of 10 in utility. I do recognize her power. If I pull the 7-star, I will probably rank her. And I do think there's probably going to be questions. I don't think she's only for Battlegrounds, but I do think that was the desired target, and that's why I thought she would be getting buffed. Lo and behold, here we are. I want to talk to you about the Elsa Bloodstone because Campo just took his to rank 2. If you don't understand Elsa, which I still don't fully for some reason, or you have her and you're disappointed in it, watch that video. Trust me, watch that video. Moving on to Masakre, I actually just took mine to rank 4 minutes before making this video. I'm extremely excited about it. Yes, his name is pronounced Masakre. Before you come and tell me it's massacre and that I should look at how it's spelling, I will tell you, I think you should look at how it's spelled. He's great. He can do the damage to the block thing that Valkyrie does. It's not as fast as Valkyrie does, but he's got other utilities. Like he does actually have that damaging debuff. He's got 2 sources of them, and he's got, I think it's a concussion or a disorient off of the SP1. I look very much forward to exploring him more. I enjoyed playing him, and I'm very excited about him. I'm very, very, very excited about him. You may see me taking him to rank 5, depending on when Kabam puts out more of those sorts of things. Then we have Black Cat also being promoted. Bryce did a really nice write-up on her, and a couple other people, I think it was Na and Tom Jarvis, who are really saying, you know, she can get in her damage loop now with the Black Cat relic itself. I'm sorry, the Black Widow relic itself. It helps her with her damage loop and keeping that going as well. We have more information on the relic down at the bottom of the page. But if Bryce, Na, and Tom Jarvis are all saying something about a champion, chances are they are right if they're all agreeing. So I feel very comfortable with her being a top shelf. I know a lot of you have been saying that she's probably getting promoted too. I know Aiden from a Discord server, another very smart player, and others have been saying similar things. So we wanted to reflect that for everyone. Moondragon staying in Super Premium. I know there was, when she got released into the game, she came across as extremely powerful. Well, when she first got released, I think the hype was very low. And then there was a series of videos that were just like, were honestly eye-popping, where I was like, is this gonna get nerfed? Like, this isn't making sense to me. She seems to be doing fine. I feel like we haven't heard anything since then. I don't have my own. No one in the Illuminati was like, hey, we gotta move her up. Everyone seems to recognize she's powerful, but just not sure on the where she's going to be used in the game. I think she's one of these champions, and this happens from time to time. If you've played long enough, you know that Corvus wasn't hyped when he first came out. I think we're gonna have to pull her, and people are gonna have to experiment and use her a lot. And then we'll really see where she's at. Black Panther is unfortunately a demotion. You often heard me talk about, I think, the power of ability accuracy decrease. He can do it. He can also do a lot of damage. It's harder for him to get it done. I do think that needs to be reflected. I think it very much does need to be reflected. I don't believe he's as powerful as Falcon and Crossbones, while still believing he is well worth ranking. If you like him, you got him. Rank him up. Atuma is the next one we'll talk about. Got a really nice buff. It helped him with his offensive use. They also buffed his defensive use. I think he's someone you're still primarily ranking because you either just love him, and if you got him at the high sig, I believe he starts with the 2 concussions, which will help him get him into his damage loop faster, and he can get some really nice damage. Like the Bahamut boss, he had, you know, some things about him that made him work better for that boss, but he was one of my best options for it, and I had a Zemo. So, and that was before he got buffed. So I could see it. I like him. I think he's in Super Premium. This is a good tier, right? He's also incredibly unique with the way he handles ability accuracy reductions. It actually makes him stronger. But I do think ultimately he's still a defender. So make sure you really like him before you rank him up, because, you know, it's fun to have a good defender in Battlegrounds and all that, but you don't get to play them. Moving on to Aegon. It's been long enough that people don't even talk about doing Abyss anymore, right? If they haven't already done it, they're not going back to do it. So I think we need to reflect that. He's been demoted. At 6 was a place also where people could use him, but that's been nerfed a couple of times now. So you're not really needing or wanting to bring him. The skill class has also gotten significantly better in that time with new champions and buffs coming out. You can see how many buff emojis on there, and then how many of those champions in the first 2 tier are just new. He's still very good. If you want to rank him up, I think there's places where you can probably use him, but right now he's just not at his tip top, and I think we do need to reflect that in the rankings. Let's go ahead and move on to Cosmic. Okay, in Cosmic, we only have one champion to talk about, and it is Adam Warlock, and it's a demotion, which I never liked. I felt a little bit, you know, we started him off in the tier above all because I do think that's kind of where he was intended to be. I don't think Kabam designers got together and were like, we really want him to be tier above all in Vega's tier list. That's what's important here. But I think they were hoping maybe for that power level. I could be wrong. I really could. But I look at him and I see all this blunt force power. And I actually have just taken mine to rank 4, and I will get that video out in the next week or two. And I'll talk to you about how powerful he is and why I was happy to take him to rank 4 and why I very much may take him to rank 5. But things can mess with him. The RPG counters, like defenders and nodes, really can mess with him, as well as like AIs. I'm sure there's ways to get around it, and as one gets better with him, you can improve and still get the fight down. But I think part of it, especially like in Battlegrounds or War, is you're hoping to get into his big loop and his big damage and just move on. Also, his pod is really interesting. I've actually been able to successfully use it a few times now to just totally handle something that I couldn't have handled. It was like Sauron's SP1. It was really cool. I've also accidentally triggered it multiple times. I do think that over time you'll get used to using it, so that's why there's a little bit of the high skill emoji there for him. We'll see, ultimately. I'm not against the idea that he could get moved up back into the tier above all, but right now I'm not seeing it. I could very much see him going to the top of top shelf. And the one thing for sure that really came across to me was, I've been saying for a long time now that I understand why people are so excited about the Cosmic class. I'm excited about them too. But why I think they're ultimately just really top heavy. And Adam kind of fits nicely in that in between. They don't have enough nulls and Hyperions, right? If you look through this list, you can see how short their top shelf is. And I know there's a lot of you that often comment, you're not sure King Groot should be there. You're not so sure Corvus should be there. You're not so sure Gore, Medusa, or Captain Marvel movie should be there. But there's enough of us still having good and positive experiences, or when a Cosmic champion is needed, that we often can reach for them and they can get the job done very well. But if we get more Adam Warlocks, and he stays kind of about where I think he is, and we get 2 or 3 more of them, I could actually see some of those other champions that are in the top shelf of Cosmic getting moved over to Super Premium. Just because there's now more Cosmic champions worth ranking that could be more helpful to your roster. They're still going to be very powerful, as we've said multiple times about Super Premium. All right, we've got a lot. This was a long one. I'm going to edit out as much as I possibly can to get it through. But thank you so much for watching. You know I love doing this video every month. I enjoy doing the top 10 semi-annually, but when we get to go back and do this and really look at it from this top perspective, or this larger perspective, wide angle perspective, it does feel good. I do enjoy it, and then it helps me focus more on my own rank ups, like ranking up MCoC today and ranking up Adam Warlock just a couple days ago. Thank you so much for watching. I know you will, but let me know what we got right. Let me know what we got wrong. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.